The following program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Virtually every Democrat candidate has declared their unlimited support for extreme late-term abortion, ripping babies straight from the mother's womb right up until the very moment of birth. How about that?
And that's to make sure that every American understands what today's Democrat Party stands for with respect to babies and with respect to the murder of babies. We have seen now in states across the country the introduction of legislation that would enable the killing of babies. This is not about abortion. This is about killing babies after they are born. And it is the face of pure evil. And you've seen the leadership of the Democrat Party here on the Hill remain silent while elected leaders, including the governor of Virginia, described in very cold clinical terms how he would in fact facilitate the murder of a baby that had already been born. And I want to say personally, as a mother, I'm the mother of 5 kids. I've delivered 5 babies. And the idea that we have to say today to mothers all across this country that we've got to describe what the Democrats are doing is really horrific. And I want to ask mothers across this country to join with us to make sure that we don't see our maternity wards turned into killing fields, which is what the Democrats would do if we don't stop this. So we are absolutely dedicated to stopping this, dedicated to protecting the most vulnerable among us, which are the unborn. And the notion that we're having a debate about whether or not you should be able to kill babies is, as I said, absolutely horrific and evil. And we will stand up against that.
Hey everybody, it's Jeff. Everybody's doing good. It's a heck of a day today, very windy today. Cloudy, we were supposed to get some rain, but I don't think we got any today, so it's just very windy, but the sky's been pretty gray, and I'm sure it's rained somewhere in the state today. Just not here yet, anyway. So, the hearings today, they had 2 people, I guess they were talking to or questioning that were from the Proud Boys or one of those groups anyway, I can't remember which, but in other words, these 2 people decided they were in over their head with these people, and so they cut and ran out of those groups, and they decided to speak to the January 6th committee today. And it was pretty eye-opening and shocking in some areas to see how these people think. Because according to what one of them said, it was the, what do they call it, the ranch standoff. Remember, it was, I'm trying to remember the guy's name now, but there was the standoff a few years ago. And the Bundy Ranch standoff, that started it all, as far as, with one of these groups anyway. And it was from that point on that this movement got started to kind of get people together to oppose the government everywhere. And, even at that time, during that standoff, which was really stupid, okay, because the guy was breaking the law, okay, down there. And it was very obvious that these people down there were just trying to defy the law, the federal law that was there, and the fact that they were forced to obey the rules of what was set for all the cattle and stuff he had there. these people simply just didn't want to obey it, okay? They were just against it. So in my opinion, I think whatever attitude was born that created the problem that got into January 6th even began before that, okay? Because I think if you look even further back, when you see the Waco incident and the Ruby Ridge incident, I think a lot of things kind of built up to the creation of these groups here, okay? And I guess certain people have this thing in mind that the minute the government tries to exercise practicing law, people get offended. Okay, like if you're going to cut down somebody's trees and stuff in their yard and the police show up and say you can't do that, right off people get their hair up. You know what I'm saying? They don't want to listen. Nobody likes to be told what to do. We set laws in this country for a reason, not just to make people's lives miserable, but to protect things, okay? And to make sure that people aren't intruding on other people's lives. Okay, there's a reason for that. But the problem is people don't really think about that. When somebody comes knocking on their door and they say, well, your trash is all over the street, you gotta go clean it up. Instead of getting mad about it and saying, oh, how dare you come over here and tell me what to do? Why don't you just sit down for a second and think if somebody else's trash was strewed all over your front yard and then call the police and ask them to go clean that off for you. You know what I'm saying? Put yourself in there in someone else's shoes. And what you have is this friggin' disrespect of how we run the country. And the more you fight to participate in how we run this country, the worse things get, because they have to make laws in order to further keep people in line, so that way they can exercise the laws that they're trying to do. It's crazy. But I think what this is a general attitude out there that they don't like following a government, okay? And these people on January 6th that went and stormed the Capitol and screaming, USA, USA, what they don't even that right there shows just how unhinged they are in their thinking. They're not even making any sense. You don't scream USA, USA and beat down the doors of the Capitol to go hang a vice president and then say I love the United States. No, you don't. You're seeing two sides of the same coin here that fight conflict with each other right then and there. So when people are doing that, they're not firm on where they stand on anything. Okay, they're just acting on emotion and functioning on just pure adrenaline, and they don't know what to do with themselves. And like I said, that comes from people not liking to be told what to do. They don't like playing by the rules. They don't like having to go vote to get the people they want leading the country. They don't like to have to participate in numerous elections that come every year. Okay, they don't like that. They don't want to do anything. Okay, it's simple laziness that eventually compounds itself into frustration, and before you know it, they're out there with a gun in your face. Okay, but these people here at the hearing today were saying that when they started to really push around the lie that Donald Trump was pushing around, and taking some drastic steps, that it was for them it was too much. Okay, they had to get out because they knew there was danger inside that group. It was like being inside of the friggin' Waco compound with David Koresh. I mean, people figured out, but were too afraid to leave that fucking cult because of him. But they were in it because something about it drew them in the first place, but after spending a little time in there, they figured out the guy was a fucking loon, okay? Same thing with this other group here, the Proud Boys or whatever, okay? They figured out these people were goddamn lunatics. And so a few of them got out before it got to the January 6th problem. And as a result, they tried to warn people about what was going to happen there. I mean, you had an embedded reporter that was in one of these things. I can't remember which one it was, but there was a guy that was like basically, in secret, a reporter, but was trying to be like a member, and he gathered all kinds of information about these people. And it became useful during the hearings when he was talking about the things they were saying and stuff. They were very militant, he described them as, and, the conversations that were going on inside the group were very aggressive, militant in their talking, just trying to start a revolution, in this country, or a civil war. That's basically all these people were talking about, was ways they could start one. And like one of them said, there is no way you can start a civil war in this country and win it in that fashion. You can't do it that way, okay? Because this isn't the 18th century, okay? We're not living the old days, okay? Our military is way more sophisticated than it ever was. And there's nobody, I don't care how many AR-15s you own at home, that's going to make much of a dent in stopping, the government from sending in troops to restore order into a part of the country. There's nothing you can do about it, okay? I mean, you think the Civil War was a long war? You try and start one now, and you're going to be looking at decades of fighting inside this country. That's never going to end, because the government won't stop to try to restore order, okay? And if these people are really that fanatical, they ain't going to stop until they get what they want, okay? By the time everything is done, you're going to have a country that's going to look like Beirut there at the end of the day, okay? It's going to be completely destroyed, and you ain't going to have no infrastructure left to speak of. You're basically going to have to start from scratch to rebuild the country, which should take another 100 years of hard work in order to accomplish. Okay, so what have you gained at the end of the day? I mean, you're not even going to live to see your revolution spring anything of goodness. It's a futile endeavor. Okay. If you want to change the government, you have to change the government, with baby steps. You're going to have to get your people, your leadership, to stop being so rigid and unyielding, and vote in people who are willing to work, and stop playing these friggin' little games here in Washington D.C. That's how you're going to change the government. Because destroying the government doesn't do anything. It doesn't change anything. All you're doing is just leveling what we've had, all the work and sweat and tears that we put into building what we have. You're just destroying it all, taking it all away. You're hurting everybody, including yourself. So why go that route? Why take the bloody, morally destroying steps to do something like that? It makes no sense. Okay? But these people don't think that way, because they're feeding off their rage. And what better group of people to get to do someone's bidding than that, and then have Donald Trump be the one that sparks the call to go and storm the Capitol the way they did. Okay? That right there is what created the final push. I mean, those people went there, they knew there was going to be something, okay? Because some of them showed up with weapons. You know that. So they knew there was going to be some action taken that day. It was spoken about back and forth online, which for some reason the Homeland Security wasn't on top of when they should have been. Or the FBI, or whichever agency you want to select, okay? There was violent talk back and forth about what they were going to do, or who they were going after, but they didn't really need to get the thumbs up from Donald Trump to say anything to go. I mean, I think Donald Trump kind of injected himself into the process by saying, well, go ahead, because I'm gonna be there with you. And, you know, if the president's going to be there, then hey, that legitimizes in their mind what they were going to do that day. So that's what happened. They decided, well, oh, hey, if he's going to be on our side while we go and storm the Capitol, hey, you know, that's basically saying it's okay to go and start this shit. And that's what they did. They're dumb. They took a stupid step and went in there thinking that, you know, the president can do no wrong, which, you know, up to this point in American history, it is easy to think that, because we've never really punished a president for doing something heinous in this country. You know, Nixon, who really should have been prosecuted, but never was, because, you know, legalese, as they say, you know, technicalities keep him from getting prosecuted. But anyway, you know, it sets a pattern. People think that, you know, if the higher up in the power structure you go, the less chance you are of having to answer for your crimes. All right. But what people saw on January 6th that day was so shocking. It was like watching 9/11, you know, happening all over again, you know. And I think that's, you know, where the struggle in our government, or in our country rather, is based on, is that people are split in this country. I'm not going to say 50-50, more like 30, 70 or whatever. That we shouldn't do these kind of things if we're not happy with our government. One side, and the other side saying, well, if the government is acting like a tyrannical thing, then we have to. Okay, but there was no evidence to prove there was anything tyrannical happening during the election, and that was the fault of the president, who was out there telling people there was, even though all the lawyers that he had working on his behalf never came up with a damn piece of evidence to support anything. In 60 court cases, which he lost, didn't yield anything. It was bad enough where even the judges just didn't want to hear it anymore. So, what are you going to say, that everybody was in on it? I mean, come on. And like one person said, which was something that I had said, you know, in other videos, is that you cannot have a conspiracy on that level in this country without leaving all kinds of evidence around to prove that there was an election stolen. Okay, there'd be all kinds of proof, all kinds of witnesses that would have said, oh yeah, I saw this, I saw that, and oh yeah, the numbers didn't match here or there. You know, because we keep, for lack of a better term, we keep receipts on our elections. We keep, you know, the people that do the election things, we have the numbers. It's, you know, we keep track of who's, you know, how many are supposed to vote this way, how many are supposed to vote that way, okay, by, you know, your registration. So if the data doesn't match what's already there, then it's going to be a problem. There's going to be question marks, and there just wasn't anything like that. Nothing was like that. I mean, it's not like we never had tough times in this country before. You know, we've went through depressions, we went through wars, big ones, you know, and you never saw people thinking about overthrowing the government during those periods, okay? I mean, sure, there was a lot of anger and stuff like that about the way things were, but back then the people seemed to have more faith in their government to be able to fix the problems. And people would sit, you know, in front of their radios, whatnot, and listen to the president when he was giving his speech about what he intended to do and trying to keep the country together. Today it's different now. People get pissed off when they lose an election so bad that they want to overthrow a government. So, like I said, you see a deterioration of our patriotism in our government here, or in our country rather, for decades. And that's why you saw, I mean, when I was reading that article about that veteran that, you know, was 100 years old, in tears basically from what he's seen our country devolve into. He comes from a different era where there was more pride in our nation. People really had a respect for government, you know, and now he's seen that, people don't give two shits about the government, and therefore they treat it as such, by electing idiots in positions of power, and the way they choose their politicians is highly questionable. So that comes from not having any pride in your nation. That's what's been lost over the years. And I suppose it's bound to happen in any country, that as time goes on, the pride that was once there that began the country just erodes, because those people, the future generations, never had to go through the trouble of building a nation and taking pride in what they created. They're just living in it, okay? And when you're just living in something that somebody else created, you got no respect for it, We can for a quick example. I mean, look at when people buy a house, okay, that somebody else built. Some people, and a lot of people, I'm not going to say some, but a lot, they'll move into that house, and within 2 years, that place is going to look like a bomb went off in there, okay? But you could tell when they built the house, there was a lot of the structure of it and everything was really done well. But the people moving in don't give a crap. And so that's what I'm talking about, is that in our country we used to have pride in our country, but we've ruined it. We're like the roaches and ants that have eaten away at it, over the decades, and we've really done a lot of damage in the 20th century to this country, and not the whole, and it didn't take the whole century to do it, okay? It really started after World War II, when things really started to get ruined. And so we're left with a country now that's very divided, very embittered, and it's just very, I mean, if you haven't lived in the country your whole life, you're not really going to pick up on the attitude change. But I've noticed the change in the way we look at our country. I mean, it's almost unheard of anybody saying anything positive about our country. And, that goes for me too. I'm not going to exclude myself. I mean, a lot of these videos I do, it's always about the things that's pissing me off about what's happening in our country. All right? But it's very rare you ever hear anybody say anything good about America. And I think a lot of times it's people really talking more about the government than just America, as a land or whatever, a country to live on. More people are really anti-government, which, there's always been an undercurrent of that since the beginning, but it's become very, very grown, and the vines of it have intertwined with the structure of our economy and our respect for the way things are. It's really flourished. The weeds of our anger has really overtaken the country, and so it's very hard to feel patriotism, to honor the flag and all that other stuff, that to have respect for those who've given their life to defend the country, and only to see that we're taking it all apart. So, but these people, like I said on the hearing today, they say that they realize the election wasn't stolen. I don't know if they're really being honest about that. The fact is, if you believe so strongly that you think the election was stolen, and you go and do what you did that day on January 6th, how can you possibly, in just a few months, all of a sudden realize, oh, I was wrong, okay? I think there's more to it than that. I think these people were just worried they were going to get caught, or pissed off that the action didn't work, and they're just trying to dodge, a perceived bullet that's coming their way if they don't, cooperate with law enforcement. But at least they're saying something that we, to give us a better picture of the inside attitude of the people who was out there that day on the ground smashing up the place and trying to go after certain politicians to do God knows what with them. And So I'm like I said, I feel like that's what's going on. Is these people here were just scared that the government was not as relentless. Okay, they've been going after people, ain't stopping, and they don't want to be punished for what they did, so they decide to cooperate. Of course, now that's going to make them targets for hatred by the people they used to belong with. And who knows what's going to happen, what's going to become with them. But like I said, if you haven't seen the hearing today, then you're not really. You should see. You have to watch at least excerpts of it. Get on YouTube and just listen to some of it, because it really does, explain the attitude of these people who were doing that crap that day. So let's go to a commercial break. I'll be right back.
Dear CEO, what's it gonna take for you to do something? Yeah, do you even care?
Climate change affects all of us.
This is your chance to do something good.
Trump was in the White House, residential staff periodically discovered wads of printed paper clogging a toilet and believed the president had flushed pieces of paper.
People are flushing toilets 10 times, 15 times, as opposed to once.
10, 15.
The president had flushed pieces of paper.
10 times, right? 10 times. Wow, Bob, not me, of course, not me. But you, him.
Clogging a toilet.
People have to flush their toilet 15 times.
10 times. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Stay on target. Stay on target.
If I'm beaten and raped in the state of Texas, I have to give birth to the baby of my rapist. If I am raped by my father, brother, or uncle and get pregnant in the state of Texas, I have to give birth to the baby of my family abuser. This new law is so draconian that I can be prosecuted for having an abortion, and so can my doctors, friends, and family who advise me, or even the Uber driver who simply drives me to the clinic. This is madness. The same people who have been protesting and screaming, "My body, my choice," when it comes to the COVID vaccine, are now saying I don't have any control over my own body. Texas Republicans won't require a 12-year-old girl to wear a mask in school that may save her life and the lives of other children, but they will force her to keep a baby regardless of how she got pregnant, including rape and incest. I am a woman, and I have a constitutional right to make decisions for my own body. I am a woman, and I have a human right to refuse to give birth to my rapist's baby. I am a woman. This is my body. I am a woman. This is the United States of America. I am a woman. You do not own or control my mind or my body.
My body is my choice.
Shame on the men and women who passed this law, and shame on anyone who sits in silence while women suffer and die because of it.
be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Welcome back, everybody. So, the president is going to Saudi Arabia, okay, and I guess he's going to be going to a lot of the Middle East countries over there for the next, while, or whatever, how long it takes him to do that. There's a lot of I'm not going to say resentment, but a lot of question marks as to why, he wants to deal with a country that he, labeled as the biggest human rights violator, and, and now all of a sudden he's over there, or he's going over there to open up an olive branch with them. And I think it's because, I've been watching Australian news, okay? And right now, their big concern in Australia is China, because hell, they're right next to it. And China has been out there buying up all kinds of little islands and stuff along the South Pacific, which is, right above Australia, And the Australians are feeling very uncomfortable with China getting that close, to them. And they're worried that China's going to set up an invasion at some point in Australia, and they've been making a pretty good case of it in the news, Australian news companies here, like we got 60 Minutes Australia, and they've been following what's been going on in that region down there. And then of course we have what's going on in Russia against the Ukraine. And, I got a feeling that, there's more to just going to Saudi Arabia in the Middle East than to just secure maybe some more oil imports to keep the gas prices down. That maybe this is also an attempt to try to create some kind of an ally, whatever you want to call, to keep them from joining up with Russia. Or, you know what I'm saying? To try to keep them in, because Russia's got a lot of oil, okay? And since they can't really sell it, they're going to be using it, for themselves. And right now, with the supply chain problems in the world, and the fact that we've put so many sanctions on Russia, that, it's affected, stability in our markets here across the country, inflation and all that stuff. And so I figure that, Biden is probably thinking long term that we're going to need Saudi Arabia if we're going to stand up against those two countries, Russia and China. And, we need to have them basically on our side. So what I see now happening is probably what's going to eventually lead to the United States forces, perhaps at some point down the road, having to go there to set up defense lines and stuff around there if things go well in this in whatever's going on with in these talks with the prince and all that, the crown prince and all these other countries. Of course, we can't really expect that they're going to cooperate, because like I said, we've had a 20-year war fighting elements of the Middle East here, and you know we got, and now we're you know, Biden is going over there with his hat in his hand, basically to try to smooth over relations a little, to try to make it possible that, you know, that these Saudi Arabia and the United States can try to, you know, forget and, you know, and bury the hatchet, which is going to sound kind of, you know, difficult. And there's no reason in the world why we should ever trust the Middle East, even if we do become partnered with them in some way. It's a very precarious situation to try to be in bed with a country like that, you know, especially with other, you know, like Iran or not Iran, but Iraq, and you know, I just don't see how this is going to last. But here we are again, basically, you know, opening the door to a country that shares no value with us, and we have no reason to share any value with them. I mean, we're just too opposite of each other to really create a bond or kind of a, you know, an agreement of friendship when we see the things that's happened. I mean, they just killed a reporter over there, and you know, it pissed off the world. I mean, what they did. And so I think that, you know, there's a lot there that's going to have to be overcome, and I don't see that, you know, Biden is really going to make much progress in this trip. But I think he's hoping that if he can do something, you know, to begin this move towards, you know, embracing Saudi Arabia, as it were, that maybe any future president would have it easier when they try to take more steps towards, you know, making arrangements with them to keep them on our side, basically, to keep Saudi Arabia on our side. Because resource is what makes wars work. And if you don't have enough resource, then you're going to lose. And you see, that's one of the reasons why we defeated Germany, is because in World War II, is because in World War II we took every factory, and we were building more factories, and put them to work on building weapons, tanks, planes, and we were outproducing Germany tenfold, okay, during the war effort. Germany had no chance, okay, because, you know, for every tank they were making, we were making 10 to counter it. The problem was we were short of oil and gas and stuff like that, so that meant rationing. Well, if we're going to take on Russia and China someday in a fight, then we're going to need a lot of resource in order to accomplish that. So, you know, like it or not, Saudi Arabia has all the oil that we'll ever need in order to secure, you know, safety and, you know, and keep the line at bay, as it were. We're going to need all the resources we can get our hands on to take those two countries on if the day comes, because Australia is nervous as hell. They think there is going to be a blockade set up between the United States and Australia by China, and they're going to stop, you know, shipping back and forth from the two countries just by putting a blockade there, which, you know, was not going to go well with either country. And that could spark a war right there. So, like I said, I know right now people are saying, oh, what the hell is Biden doing? Well, you have to look at the big picture here. It's not just about oil, okay, or the price at the pump. You know, there's also a strategic goal here trying to be achieved for a future problem that's just around the corner, okay? Russia's already becoming militant and doing what they're doing in Ukraine, and China's making some pretty questionable moves out in the South Pacific. That looks like what Putin was doing just before Ukraine. So we're going to be on the defensive here pretty quick. So we have to think about securing allies and resources before things get to that point. Okay. So, speaking about resources and stuff, I had watched a little discussion take place on Twitter today about circular economy, which means it's an economy that doesn't create waste. Everything is recyclable. You know what I'm saying? You use it. You recycle it. Gets used again, recycled. You give it away. You know what I'm saying? Nothing is ever thrown in the trash. Okay. Which sounds good on paper. Okay. It sounds like an answer. The problem is that logically, there is absolutely no way you can create an economy that doesn't create waste, okay? You can't create a system that isn't going to have refuse, all right? Even animals can't live on this earth and not create refuse. Life is about waste. I mean, it's about, it's about using what we have and discarding what we don't need, all right? Now, sure, there's things that we can recycle, like plastics and stuff. I mean, we should be doubling down, tripling down on that, which we don't do enough of as far as I'm concerned. You don't see, places that are actually recycling, okay? Wherever they are, they're far and few between. So we're not really committed to recycling. And I think if we were, a lot of these issues that we're having with waste and all that wouldn't be on the foremost of people's minds. If we actually committed to as much recycling as we could do, then there'd be a lot less waste, okay? A lot less. But it wouldn't be completely gone, all right? Then you have to factor in the number of people that are alive in this world. You got billions of people living on Earth, and how in sweet Jesus are you going to be able to make these people not create waste, okay? I'm sorry, but in order for us to try to achieve a goal of cleaning up our world, you have to say every country is all in on it, okay? Every country, not just the big three, but everybody has to partake in it. Everybody. And there's no way you're going to guarantee that, okay? A lot of countries are poor and they can't afford to make recycling plants or something like that. Okay, it would require the big three to build them for them, okay, to go down there and build it for them. All right, but even building things is going to create waste. You're cutting down trees. You're destroying areas of land. Okay, and then when you're recycling, you could be pumping chemicals into the air. I mean, it's just there's no way logically that you can do anything to this environment without some equal repercussion coming back. You know what I'm saying? For everything you do on this planet, it comes back in the same. So like I said, it sounds good on paper, but it's unrealistic. But what we can do is reduce the amount of waste we create, and that's more realistic and more doable. We just have to put aside our I don't want to do, and actually commit to it. All right? If people are really that interested in recycling to lower the waste, we can do it. We can. We have the technology. But we don't seem to want to invest in that, and that's the problem why the waste is getting ahead of us and we're not keeping up with it. And like I said, if we had been all along since the beginning of the industrial age, I can pretty much guarantee you the Earth would be a lot healthier than it is now, and there'd be a lot less things floating around in the water. They say there's more plastics floating around in the water than there are fish, okay? And we're contaminating the ocean because we're not recycling anything as the way we should. Our population is so big that we really have to think about where we put our refuse and what do we do with it, okay? I mean, it's not like, there's only 100 people living in the continent, so But the whole world has to be committed on that. And it's ridiculous that people can't see an investment possibility in recycling. You know, companies could make a lot of money by building up an economy within the recycling industry, okay? If they really wanted to do something about it, they could put a lot of people back to work with good paying jobs dealing with these plants, recycling plastics, okay? That'd be a great way to make some good money there, you know what I'm saying? It can't do anything but help. It's a positive, you know what I'm saying? It pays off in the long run more than we could imagine. You know, yeah, of course it costs a lot of money to build one of these things, but in the end it's going to pay for itself, and the people that work at this place are going to be in good standing. You know, they're going to have, you know, plenty of money to come in. It boosts the economy, you know, and you know, how can you go wrong with that? So that's why I say, you know, it's better to think about the doable to fix a problem than it is to imagine, you know, a perfect solution, which, you know, if we can't even get people to agree on the doable, you know, just to reduce the amount of pollution, then how are you ever going to get people to agree on a system like a circular economy where everything's recyclable all the time? I mean, it's just, you got two problems right off the bat with that idea. So it's just, it's better to keep your expectations in the realistic range. And right now, what I've been talking about can be done. All we have to do is encourage companies to do these things and people to do these things and get it started. You know, everything today is plastic, and so there should be a huge industry in recycling plastic in this country. Big industry, you know, even competitive with the oil industry, you know, because it takes oil to make plastic, right? So, you know, the recycling industry in America should be this monstrous thing, you know, that's probably got influence in the government and all this shit, you know what I'm saying? But people are so stubborn and pig-headed, they can't see the opportunity sitting right in front of them, you know. But I don't know, that's you know, an issue there that's going to take time, I guess, more than discussion to get people to understand, because as the problem gets worse, it's going to force people to look at it in a hard way and decide, you know, do we want to keep going down this road or not, okay? Because I feel like that's really the only time people ever get motivated to do something is when the problem is knocking on their doors. And right now it's easy to ignore the problem of pollution because we don't see it, okay? We see it a little bit here and there, but it's not like it's flooding our lives. But maybe they should go live in New York City for a while and see what trash does down there, because when I was there I couldn't believe the amount of trash on those streets. Couldn't believe it. Trash stacked so high, it's actually stacked taller than I am, sitting on the sidewalks, okay? It's not a wonder they got a rat problem down there. I mean, where the hell do you think they're gonna go where there's food? It's gonna be right there on the streets. And the rats, by God, they are big and healthy. It's as big as my cat. Them damn things. So, yeah, if you don't think we have a trash problem, then maybe in your area it might be cleaner than most, but there is a trash problem in many pockets of our country here. And if you ever decide to go and take a gander at what's out there, it will surprise you. Okay, the first thing that's going to come to mind is, how can these people live like pigs, you know, in a big, you know, beautiful city? It's like, well, it might be beautiful from the air, but when you get on the ground, it ain't so, you know. All right, so that's it for today, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. So please keep your ears open to the COVID-19 news. Apparently it's spiking again, and you know, maybe considering wearing masks again until the spike goes down is a good idea, but that's up to you. And subscribe and comment, and please just you know, give me some feedback on things to talk about. Discussion is good. And I will talk to you again later. So, take care.